The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hi everybody, I'm Richa Bindra, and this week on #NoFilter we are talking about teens and the crazy world of dating. Hi everyone, I'm Richa Bindra, and on this week's episode of #NoFilter, we are talking about teens and dating. With me is Casey Operman. She is a registered psychotherapist. She's also a registered marriage and family therapist, and she is here to help us get an insight on what it really feels like. So welcome on our show.
Thank you.
I also have our fabulous team panelists today. I know they're so excited to talk about dating and their personal life. We have Rachel, Mark, and Olivia. Guys, how excited are you?
So excited.
Okay, so should I start the bombardment of questions, or should I leave it to you guys?
Oh, I don't know. I think you should start.
Okay, done. So, Casey, as somebody who, deals with teens all the time, and you kind of deal in this, this is, I guess, your nature of work, dating has changed for teens, would you say, from maybe even 10 years ago till today? And if so, what is the biggest change you've noticed?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, and let me know what you guys think. I think that if you were to look back maybe 10, 20 years ago, I mean, I think gone are the days where there's a traditional phone call, getting picked up, meeting your parents, that sort of thing. I think the biggest thing that I'm noticing, especially with teens, is more and more online dating. Right. There's been a huge burst of technology. Technology, I think, has really exploded. I think that we're seeing more and more of that. So where there's less kind of face-to-face interaction and more online or technology that's being used. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Do you guys feel like, yeah, like as she said, do you guys think it's easier now to maintain a relationship because you can kind of see your, your other half in school and then come home and carry on your fight or your love story through social media and technology?
It's easier. I wouldn't say that it's better, though. I mean, because when you do have the other element of being able to talk to them all the time, you kind of lose the personal and special connection of talking to them in person. And it's really not the same because some people can be completely different when they're texting you or when they're calling you on the phone compared to when you're seeing them in person. So you really gotta find somebody that's the same person during face-to-face and also can be very similar when you're talking to them on text or phone call or whatever.
And also it's you're not getting that special moment where you see them finally after a week or something and you get to finally see each other and catch up, but instead you're constantly with them, constantly seeing them over Instagram, over text.
You're constantly in touch.
Yeah.
Do you feel like now it's almost beneficial, though, in a way as well, because they can kind of, if someone's really shy and if someone's really outgoing and, they haven't been able to maybe build that connection in a classroom or in the public space, they can start the other way around versus okay, we're in the same school, I meet you on Facebook, I meet you on Instagram, we connect, and then we build something. Do you think there's almost if we talk about teens and identity in terms of that aspect with their mind and sort of how they're developing, is it almost better or?
So I guess there's a few really good questions in there. I think kind of coming back to one thing that you were saying, I think that technology is really, really great on in some aspects, but I think that it also can be, there's a few kind of warning pieces that I think you need to be aware of. On the one hand, I absolutely agree. I think that technology and kind of what you were saying, technology is a great way to meet people and it's a great way to maintain a relationship, and it's also a great way to be able to take a risk. So say if you're someone who's more shy or more anxious, it's a great way for you to, or a tool that you can use to really risk and put yourself out there. At the same time, again, what you guys were saying, I think that it's important to always remember that people can present themselves differently online or using any sort of technology. People can present themselves differently rather than face-to-face. So it is really important, exactly like what you were saying, to find that person who you can have that online connection with, but at the same time who you can connect with face-to-face as well. I don't know what you think.
Do you guys sort of disconnect with your partners, or do you guys have your friends that are okay, I just saw you all day, now I don't want to see what you're doing? Or do you have the opposite where they're oh, well, he didn't message me all day, but he saw my Snapchat, so what does that mean? He's looking at my Snapchat, but he doesn't want to message me? Where does it almost help the relationship, or do you guys feel like it's the opposite?
I don't know. I don't think there's really, I think it just depends on you personally. I personally don't really care.
Okay.
If I am talking to a guy, I'd prefer to talk in person, or if he wants to talk through phone, I'd prefer for him to call, because texting just is such out of my way. But if we're like talking or whatever, and he like looked at my Snapchat story, I'm not gonna get offended in any way.
Okay.
He can go on about his life.
I think that, like you were saying before, in terms of if you see someone all day and then you go and talk to them afterwards, I've seen that like a lot of people really, it's kind of too much if you're always together at school and then you're always talking at the nighttime. I think it's like, it's because it comes to a point where you kind of get sick of each other. Like as much as
you're in love.
No, as much as you may like that person, you kind of get sick of the other person. So I don't know. I think sometimes it can be a little too much. Sometimes you gotta take a break, and like I think it's even like beneficial if you go to like a different school than the person or things
Absolutely.
like that. So that like you said, when you do meet them, or like when you do see them, it's a lot more special.
Do you feel like when you guys are now in the dating scene, do you feel like your privacy is totally gone because your friends know everything? You know, your boyfriend liked your picture, your boyfriend followed 30 other girls' pictures, your boyfriend didn't like, do you feel like you've almost lost that privacy?
I see people getting way too involved in other people's relationships, and it's getting to the point where people are like getting in fights with their friends because their friends are getting more involved in this relationship than you want them to be. And they are updating you on everything, and they're just, like telling other people. You hear rumors, and it gets messy.
So, Casey, from a psychological point of view, and when you work with teens in therapy and stuff, do you feel like the insecurities that can come with teen dating today with social media is almost like really negative in a way, almost?
I would say yes and no. I mean, again, I think there's the positive of being able to take certain risks, but at the same time, yes. I was kind of laughing at what you were saying in the sense that that you don't feel jealous or you really don't care. I feel like that is so unusual for me to hear. That it's so different, and there's been a lot of studies that have been coming out of that social media in a way has led to the death of several relationships because there is so much jealousy, because there's that monitoring. You can kind of check in. And even Facebook, you can tell somebody's read your messages. iMessage, if you have that read receipt turned on. Snapchat, you can tell when somebody's opened your Snapchat or has looked at your story, and so it really can fuel a lot of jealousy. So yes, I think that, and again, when you post your relationship online, which more and more people are doing, which I think for me, one of the biggest things that I always come back to is that safety, creating certain boundaries, that certain things are meant to be private, but yeah, that it can really open up to being kind of bullied, being targeted, and really just having your life on parade for everybody to see, which can be really hurtful.
And I think for teens, that's, I think, where the big challenge comes, right? Because obviously they're born in the generation where they want to share their life on social media. This is the world they're in, but at the same time, if they're working to cultivate these relationships, as you said, they need to sort of build that fine thread between knowing when it's too much and when, as you said, like these insecurities can just keep developing, and so many relationships I hear are always ending because of silly arguments based on social media. So on that note, on the other side of the break, we are going to be talking about what kinds of things you can do to build a stronger communication in the world of dating. Hi everybody, welcome back to #NoFilter. I'm Richika Bindra, and we're talking about the ever so fun topic of teens and dating. Casey, question for you. Yes. Communication between your parents and yourself when you're in the world of dating, which you will be being a teenager. There's going to be many times you're going to date different people. I know family dynamics and family communication is something you specialize in as well. How do you kind of build that relationship where you can tell your parents without them being very overbearing, and at the same time, if I switch cards, your parents want to have a certain communication too, because they feel like with social media, we're so, our kids are so away from us. So what is something our teens can kind of do to build a balance?
I mean, I think that, again, that's kind of where you get into some difficulty, because in your teen years, you're also, you're at the developmental stage, where you're also supposed to be developing that sense of identity, that independence, that autonomy. And so I always encourage, because it is tough to balance with parents and kids, because on the one hand, I always encourage parents to try and be approachable, to be very open-minded. So not being critical, not blaming, not being judgmental, just being open, approachable, so that you always know that you can go to your parents if you ever need anything. In terms of, teens and youth, I'm always encouraging, parents like to know where you are and what you're doing, and so kind of the more information that you can give your parents, in a way, the more they're going to be off your back. So again, there's kind of that balance of the open communication, where you're going, who you're going to be with, what you plan on doing, as much as you can tell them, I think is always helpful in just maintaining that free-flowing information. But yeah, and then, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. So have you guys ever felt like awkward to tell your parents things, or have your friends been like, hey, listen, call your parents up and say you're with me, or I'm telling my parents I'm with you and they're actually not? Like, the family communication, do you guys find like it's not a big deal, people just overhype it, like, oh, communication between parents and teens, or is it an actual issue that you guys have seen with other people too?
Well, I have had friends who are like, can I tell my parents I'm with you, and they go with their boyfriend or girlfriend. Like, that has happened to me.
Are you kind of like, no, because if something happens, like, I don't want to be like liable because like your parents think you're with me, or you're like, okay, no, everything is going to be fine?
Oh, I always say no, don't do that. Because if they contact me, like, I don't want to lie to their parents for them. And also, like, it makes you feel like you're being used by your friends as well at the same time.
And I know, like, this is not a preaching session, but one thing I'm going to say to all our viewers is, with social media, and I think with so many things happening, and, you know, you can just get lost in this world of dating, and now there's so much more of a disconnect between, kind of, as you said, you know, the platforms we use, and we can get lost in it. I think it's so important to always have somebody actually know where you are, just for safety purposes, and I think that's something that we hear more and more about in the news right now. So, yeah, tell your parents where you're going.
And, like, also, I feel like if you kind of, from what I've seen personally, I feel like people are more willing to spend time with their partner if they tell their parents, like, and it's a really open communication. Absolutely. And I feel like the relationship is a lot more successful if you don't have to be hiding things from your parents.
But then, Casey, what do you do when you have sort of, you know, parents that are a little bit more judgmental or a little bit more conservative in their views, which you are going to have. You have a, you know, you have a mix of cultures, you have a mix of diversities, especially in, you know, countries like Canada and the States. Like, we're so multicultural. So you're going to, if you're dating somebody who's totally opposite of you from another culture, where do you kind of find that balance?
I mean, I feel like what kind of came to mind for me is group dates, you know, in the sense that when you are trying to be open, when you're trying to share, again, if there's that conflict with your parents, trying to get creative, you know, that there are other ways, you know, rather than just one-on-one time together, there are always other ways that you can build a relationship with somebody. So whether it becomes a group hangout, if that's okay, or, again, I don't know, like group hangouts, again, online stuff. I don't know, I kind of just got lost in thought there, sorry.
No, but I think group dating is really cool. I actually didn't think about that, but yeah, like if you're dating somebody and like you're from the same school and your friend is, you know, her boyfriend's from another school, maybe doing something together, at least for your parents, if you're in that situation where your parents are a little bit more, you know, conservative or a little bit more careful about where they want their kid to be, I think you're right, it opens a little bit. It's almost a push and pull, it's a balance. And I think that's important. That's a pretty cool idea that you can kind of find different ways. Do you feel like communication is a huge issue for you for dating when it comes to your like parents and family members?
Not really. I'm actually quite honest with both my parents. Even my older brother, I'll tell him, hey, I'm going out with some guy. He'll be like, okay, like, be home by this time.
Yeah.
Or even my mother, I'll be like, hey, like, this is the deal. Like, I'm going out with somebody. He's whatever age kind of thing. She's like, okay.
Does your mom want the whole like bio, like give me
like,
his entire life story?
Yes, but sometimes
because my mom does. So
yeah,
I'm
she's
just
like,
checking.
I want to meet him. I'm like, oh my god, like it's like, but yeah, no, I'm okay with telling my parents about it. So yeah.
What do you guys think is one of the worst things for you guys for dating right now? One of the biggest challenges I would say that you guys experience?
Ooh.
I would say other people getting involved.
Okay.
Like, it's such a problem. Like, people always want to know what's going on with you in your relationship, when I think that should just be you and your partner's business rather than your friends and their friends.
But do you think there's like a part to that, I'm going to play devil's advocate, where like women have a tendency to call their friends every time something happens and discuss it, right? Like, I don't know if this is more something scientifically that's more females do it. I don't know if guys like, do
guys do it.
You guys do it too? Crap, I thought it was only us.
I don't know if it's like too much of an extent, but like it happens. I won't deny that, but.
Okay. And I think that plays a part in it too, right? Because we engage in gossiping, and that's what makes girls, I think, closer to. I know a lot of studies say part of the way we bond as women is, you know, talking about intimate things that happen to us and romantic-based things. And so obviously talking about the, the person that you're with or about to get involved with. I know the famous, one of the most, I was reading yesterday before coming on the show, teen dating, one of the craziest mishaps is sending screenshots of your conversations to your friends and then accidentally you send back to the guy. And it's happened to millions, it's happened to me all the time too. And I'm like, crap, damage control, what do I do? So I think, that's where I think the privacy aspect as well is lost in transition. And what do you kind of recommend to teens? If you could give them sort of one advice in today's crazy world with dating, what would you say it would be?
Well, I think that it kind of plays off exactly on what you were saying in that I find that a lot of teens can get really stuck, and I mean, adults too, everybody does it, but that there comes a point where you're almost sharing too much, and then it almost becomes an obligation where after every fight, you need to update everybody. When you're back together, when you guys have made up, you have to update everybody. When, when anything happens, you get a gift, you guys go somewhere, it's always having to update each other or everybody in your social network. And so for me, what I always suggest is, try and keep some of your relationship private. Have those boundaries where it is just between you and your partner, because it really does enhance the relationship. It makes it more special, and it enables you to be closer, because not everybody, like you said, is in your business and always wants to get an update and needs to be in the know.
Do you guys kind of work, do you guys feel the same way? Do you guys feel like, okay, your private life is your private life? Or are you guys like, no, I need to be engaging and I need to know what my friends are up to and I need to know what their boyfriends did for Valentine's Day versus, my boyfriend or whatever?
No, I think if it's your private life, it's your personal life, I think you should keep it to yourself. Like, if my friend asks, I'll be like, yeah, I went out with that guy, we had a good time, we went to mini putting or whatever, But other than that, I'm not gonna tell them what else we did. So
are your friends though, kind of they want to
hey,
oh no, but then tell me what happened? And
yeah, and I'm like, no, that's none of your business.
Mark, what about for guys? Be honest, when guys go on a date and they come back, are they like, yo, that was really good? Or what's the conversation like? For teens all over watching, they really want to know.
The stereotypes about girls, it's pretty much the same for guys.
Okay, hold that thought, because we're going to talk about it after the break. We are going to be talking about the crazy digital world with Tinder, Hot or Not, and so much more. Stay tuned on the other side of the break, everyone. And welcome back. You are watching #NoFilter with me, Ruchika Bindra, and we are talking about teens and dating. Before the break, we touched on how men are when they come back from a date. So please, for women all over the York region, tell us.
Sorry guys for ruining the secrets here and whatnot, but it's pretty much the same, whatever you're talking about, in terms of really screenshots and telling, guys are really happy for their guys when they find somebody else. So you're kind of I think you really just want to know because you want to hope that it went well, just so you're your buddy had a good time and whatever, so things work out and they're happy and whatever. Okay, so at least we've set the record straight. Men do it too. So women are from Venus, but men are equally a little bit, even if they're in Mars, they still have the same behavioral habits. So that's at least, Casey, something we've set in stone. I'm now going to switch the subject to something a little bit more controversial, but I think it's very important: safety and teens today. I know with a lot of social media, as as we've spoken about, it's great. You can interact, you can get closer. If you're shy, you can build your relationship. If you have more conservative parents, you can spend time talking maybe through that, as you said, if you can't always go out. But where do you draw the line with safety? For example, I know with Snapchat, you can send a private snap, but someone can screenshot it and they'll say they screenshotted it, but at that point it's too late. So what about with inappropriate pictures or something that's a little bit more personal?
Yeah, I feel for me, my approach is always, and when I talk to anybody, again, not just teens, it's to just remember that whatever you put out there could always come back to haunt you. Even if, say for example with Snapchat, the whole idea of Snapchat is that once it's, once the timer runs out, it's supposed to be gone. But it's not always gone, and it can come back to haunt you. And so just to always be really careful and just be really mindful of what you're putting out there, whether it's pictures, whether it's certain text. That's where face-to-face conversations can always be really great and even be more intimate than what you can accomplish online or through texting, through messaging, anything like that. So I'm always just be really careful about what you're putting out there. Pictures,
and I think
anything.
It can also lead to a lot of post-teen bullying, because I know we've seen so many cases in the last few years of girls, I know Amanda Todd was a really sensitive case for a lot of people, myself included, when I saw that, because you don't realize how somebody could have just started a relationship and throughout her teenage years, having to move different schools, having to go from city to city, and still being followed and still being haunted by something that, innocently maybe at, I don't know if she was 13 or 14, she did, and having to come to the point where you have to end their life. So in situations like this, is therapy something as well teens can do? And it's almost like, should they be going to their parents to say, like, listen, this situation has happened? How do they cope from these situations as well? Because obviously we don't want it to turn into something where, you know, things like suicide and things that are a little bit more serious can come into play. So how do we prevent it?
For sure. I mean, I think that, again, what a lot of people don't always realize is that some of your best resources are right around you. Talking to your friends, talking to siblings, talking to a coach, teacher, parents. There are a lot of people who are likely in your life that want to help you and want to talk to you. But at the same time, there are a lot of people who don't necessarily feel comfortable accessing those people. And that's exactly where therapy can come in. I mean, my role as a therapist is really to help anybody who's struggling with anything. I work with lots of different topics, and this is one of them, for sure, that I would see people coming in with.
And for teen bullying as well, I think that happens a lot, right? Like if you've broken up with your boyfriend, or I know a lot of studies show like girls will send other girls messages, your boyfriend cheated on you, or your boyfriend did this, sort of like everything is now, there's that safety aspect that we've lost. So what can you recommend to teens in terms of being safe when they're engaging with dating in the digital world?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we touched on a lot of them, you know, just being mindful of what you're putting out there, just being mindful of how much you're sharing. I think that, again, like we have a tendency to really overshare and kind of post a lot of things online. Also, and I think it was something you touched on a little bit earlier, but just being really mindful of whether or not you're comparing yourselves to other people. I know you're saying, you know, you don't really, it doesn't really matter, I think is what you're saying about what other people do with their boyfriends or whatever, but there are a lot of people who really do. They'll look on people's Facebooks and Snapchats and messages and, you know, just in talking because they want to know how well they measure up. So just being really mindful of that, you know, follow your own standard, make your own standards.
And I think both, not only digitally with like pictures and, you know, exposing your personal stuff, I think as well physically having the safe sex talk and having the conversation, and however you're going to have your personal physical space with somebody, that, you know, is your decision, but just having the conversation to people. And I think being aware of what you're doing, I think is really, really important. I think a lot of teens today, we're so quick to jump from one to the other, which is great because you're exploring and you're learning, but I think somewhere we need to kind of be mindful, as Casey said, of a lot of, you know, safety and privacy issues. What about dating sites? Yesterday I read that 1 in 3 teens are now meeting their potential dates or their dating mates on dating sites like Tinder, Hot or Not. There was one I heard, something with fish. Catfish? No, Plenty of Fish. I don't know if teens still use that. So do you guys engage on any of these like dating sites like Tinder?
I actually write a blog.
Oh, cool.
And my blog is about just my life. And I decided to download Tinder because I have a few friends and a few people that I know that actually use it. And they're like, Olivia, it's hilarious. Download it. You can write about it.
Have a good laugh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, totally doing it. So I downloaded it, and just some of the messages are ridiculous.
That you're getting from, I guess, the opposite sex
people.
On Tinder.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like so funny. But like, obviously, I've never hung out.
And how is the dating change now with Tinder? Like, how are they approaching you versus conventionally? Like, do you see there's a difference, or it's the same?
I mean, like, some guys are nice about it. They'll be like, hey, like, how are you? You're so pretty. But others will just get, like, right to it. And I'll be like, okay, goodbye, like, unmatch. Like.
So what is it? You flip and someone tells you if you're hot, and if you're hot, like, you get connected with them?
If you guys, like, mutually agree that you guys are both
So it's like
good-looking.
digital chemistry. If our digital eyes meet each other through this picture, we're connected.
Yeah,
do you see how I drew passion into something so platonic?
No, but in terms of like Hot or Not and all that stuff and like Tinder, I've always thought that it's more of like a thing to do for fun. I don't really know how serious it gets. Like, obviously, if you want to go for it. Like, nobody's going to stop you in that sense. But I think, like you said, like, a lot of the stuff is pretty hilarious on there.
Would you be embarrassed, though, to be like, oh, I met my girlfriend on Tinder? Like, would you be like, no, we need to come up with a new, like, you know, like at the wedding, people are like, no, our wedding story is really bad. Like, change it.
I wouldn't even do that. But, like, I don't know. If I like the person enough, then I don't think I'd be embarrassed about it.
You'd be like, okay, we met on Tinder or on a social dating website.
I don't know. I have a lot of friends who use Tinder seriously. Like they're actually looking for people on Tinder. And I don't know, there's like that whole shallow aspect to it where you're basing it off of their picture. And like, I don't know if that's what you want to be known for, like, oh, I found my girlfriend based off of like online, like what her online profile looks like. Because you don't even know if that's what they look like in real life, kind of thing.
Exactly. So Casey, I think today with teen dating, can we say like there's a huge voyeurism as well, because everything is so physical with like physically how you look with social media, Tinder, and all these apps. Do you feel like therapy-wise, we need to always stay like true to who we are because we can lose that self?
Well, I think that, and I think like when I was listening to you talk, I was thinking a lot about the idea of hookup culture, where I think that we're seeing that more and more. It's really developing into this hookup culture where there are certain apps, websites that we're seeing that, yeah, just really facilitate more of that kind of wham bam. So just being really clear about what you want and what you're looking for.
All right, thank you so much, Casey. We spoke about teens dating, and just remember one thing: privacy and safety. Thanks for watching, everyone.